Thanks to our kids and I know that took a lot of work for them to put that together, so we're so grateful for that. And thank you, Stephanie. So welcome to New Branch Community Church. We're so happy that you're here today to be with us to celebrate Christmas. And we'd like to also welcome those joining us online and by phone. We have several people doing that every week, and we're so glad they can be with us too. I am just coming off a vacation, and we went to Florida, and we had an awesome time. Thank you guys for that time to be able to do that. It was 80 degrees, and I came back to the cold and got a cold, and I think half people here are sick, so anyway, but it's good to be back, and I'm glad to be back with you guys. And Rick McAllister did an amazing job last Sunday, and we're glad to have him here. And he heads up our Autumn Care Ministry. But if you didn't get to hear that message, go online and please listen to it. It is a life changer. And I'm so glad that he was able to come here and be with you guys. So Christmas is upon us. How many people are ready for Christmas? Anybody did all your shopping? You make me sick. You know. This year they're getting a card that says, "We spent all our money in Florida, thanks." Merry Christmas. That's the way it's going to be for our family this year. But anyway, and Christmas is great, isn't it? But here's a question I have for you today. How many people have anticipated a gift? You know, when you're a child, did you ever have that time where it was like that one gift? And maybe you got it, and maybe you didn't. Maybe you're still waiting for it. But you remember that Christmas that it was just like that was the gift? You know what I'm talking about? I had a Christmas morning like that, and I think everybody in our neighborhood that year did. And this will date you. We'll see how old you are, and we'll separate the church a little bit. Okay, I'm going to give you the picture. And you've probably seen this before because I've used it as an illustration, but it's just fun. This was one of my, Does everybody know? Yeah, there you go. Does everybody know? Does everybody know? What is that? Does anybody know? Atari. Okay, there you go. And all the people under 30, I guess, are going, what is that? I don't know. Is that a tape deck or what is it? Okay, and it took cartridges, but everybody got one that Christmas. I can't remember the time frame, 1983, 1982. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is it was back then, and everybody was anticipating getting this thing, and it was just awesome, you know, because you plug it into the analog television, and which some of you don't know what that is, but I'm telling you, it had rabbit ears, and you plug the sucker into the back of it, and. And it was awesome because you don't have to pay for video games. It was just great, you know. And and we had this at home. Okay, my mom's not here today, so I can talk a little bit. Okay, so they went a little bit cheap on their television. I don't know how to describe this, but we had a console TV. Anybody had one of those, you know? Okay, that's not the cool part, okay? That was black and white, or it was color. That went out. And so then we ended up with a black and white 3,000-pound, I don't know what, monstrosity that was on top of it. You know what I mean? It's like the kids had to be careful not to pull it down on top of them, you know, it would kill you. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger kind of thing. And so anyway, it was one of those that you had to turn it on, and it's just a side note, but you turn it on, and it took like 30 or 40 minutes for it to heat up with a picture tube. Has anybody got one of those? And then when you cut it off, it took a while to cut off. Do you remember what I'm talking about? It's like... a little dot, see, and the people that aren't laughing go, I don't know what you're talking about, okay? But a lot of people are laughing. Boy, we got the right congregation here. And so you look at that little dot forever, you know, it's like, Okay, and, okay, so that's what we got that Christmas. And then we got a cool game. So, and I had to take a while to get a picture of this because I wanted you to see it in black and white because this is what I saw. Here's the great game that I got. Let's see if you know what this is. Maybe you won't see it. And this is what it was like for the game, so you had to wait for it, and it was awesome. So, all right. Well, anyway, I'll describe it. How about that? The game was Pac-Man. Okay. But when you see this picture, it will not look like Pac-Man. There you go. I'm glad I said it because I got a feeling some of you are going, that's Pac-Man? Big, long lines. And then when you turn it on, it doesn't even make normal sounds, right? It's like, doo, 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 doo. Remember? It was like, pong, 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 pong. And, but it was awesome. Why am I saying that? Because we were so excited about it. And by the way, for those of you that are younger, this was the only screen. It just got faster. That was it. There was no new screens. Okay, and it was just about getting the high score. All right, now, here's the point of the story. How long do you think it took for that to get old? This game, I mean, really, seriously. By that night, you're going, really? This is it? I mean, one screen, you know, you can make 1,000,000 points, and then it was just about getting the high score. And my dad decided to get into it, right? And he wasn't a video game player, trust me. And he would stand up when he played, kind of like you do the Wii, only it wasn't a Wii, you know? And he literally broke the controller by that night. He didn't mean to, but he was so heavy-handed. I was like, you know? It got old by that night. And I can tell you, if it didn't get old by then you get some new games and all that kind of stuff, and Frogger and Defender. Anyway, it doesn't matter what games. But here's what I want to tell you. It got old. And so by the next Christmas, guess what? Not everybody was getting Atari the next Christmas. You know what they're getting? Atari 2600, right? Does that sound familiar? Some of you don't even know what that is. Okay. And then ColecoVision. And then maybe some of y'all recognize this. You know, they got Nintendo. Remember when Nintendo came out? And then it was Commodore 64 computers, which with no hard drive whatsoever. And we laugh at that because it's like, anybody playing those today? No. Right? And then Xbox and PlayStation and all that. And we got into that. And then right before after we started the church, me and my son got Xbox 360. I say we both did. He got it. And and I let him open his present at midnight on Christmas. That counts, right? And we played it all night until the next day. It was just great because, why do you want to go to bed? We didn't have to go to bed. We just played it all night. I always wanted to do that. And it was great. And I won't tell you the game because it was violent. And anyway, people get offended by this. And it was awesome. But can I tell you, it wasn't so awesome by the next year. You see how it wears out. You get what I'm saying? That things, it just doesn't last. It's kind of like this Atari thing. It's like, have you ever had that thing? It's like, if I get this, have you ever had that feeling? If I get this or if this happens, then I'll be happy. Anybody ever thought that? And I know it started as a kid. And then eventually you think, well, that's just the way it is. You just have to go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And there is no real satisfaction that lasts. Is that right? There's no real joy that continues to last and last and last. Or is there? And that's the question I have for you today. How do you make it? In fact, here's the question I want you to think about today. How do you make joy last? Is that even obtainable? Is that even possible? And today I want us to look at a story. We're going to be looking at a Christmas story over the next 2 weeks. And we called it the gift of Christmas. But we're going to be taking a look at some obscure things next Sunday. A part of the Christmas story that maybe you've never heard. And it's always fun to find that because, what do you talk about? It's like every year Christmas comes around, it's the same stories, But this Sunday, I got one that I think maybe you've never heard. Maybe you have. But it'll be exciting. And this week, we're talking about, today we're going to talk about some of the strangest characters, in my mind, of the Christmas story. And I just want to set the Christmas story up for you. I'll be honest, if you ever like a pastor, you read it like you read it for the first time, this is one of the most bizarre stories imaginable. I mean, you got the religious and the other leaders not there. You got nobody's understanding what's going on. You got babies being born in a manger, right? The Son of God is being born in a barn. You got shepherds showing up out of the blue with symphonies of angels just showing up. It's crazy, right? But the one I want to talk about today is even stranger, okay? And by the way, don't get me wrong. It is God's way of painting a picture that is amazing. There's so much in the Christmas story that if you really grasp what it means that he's using all this symbolism and who was involved, it is amazing what God is teaching. So don't get me wrong. But today we're talking about some people that showed up in the Christmas story that are just bizarre. The Magi, the wise men. They are, to me, one of the strangest characters in the Christmas story, and I'm so excited to talk about them today. So you can pull out your Bibles. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 2. And if you want to read the Christmas story for yourself this year, it's not very long. Matthew chapter 1 and 2, Luke chapter 1 and 2. Go back and read it because we're kind of picking up here. In fact, next Sunday we're going to do the same thing after Jesus was born. But take some time this Christmas season, and if you come to our Christmas Eve service, we're going to read that story together, and it's awesome. But don't miss the rest of the Christmas story. But this Sunday we're going to focus on the Magi. So here we go. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. And you can go to the next screen because there you go. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. So before we go very far, I want to explain who were the Magi. Maybe you don't know, and to be quite honest with you, there's not a lot said of them, so it's really a hard thing to even understand who they were, because they just kind of, here they come. Who are you? Why did you come? But here's some of the best guesses that we have. They were from Persia or Babylon. That's where the word was mostly used. The word means priest. but not in the sense that we understand it. Their function was that of being an advisor to the king in religion, in civil and political and council and whatever you could think of. They were supposed to be the wisest people, and so you go to them. And a lot of them were like fortune tellers. A lot of them were like, they could do a little bit of magic kind of stuff. And that's basically who these guys were. Later on, they became king makers. So the people that counsel became the ones that selected. That's just a side note for you. They're well educated. They're in astronomy and astrology and science and religion and medicine. You name it. The wise men, the magi, were people that were very educated. And some of the kings in the past had taken them. I don't know if you know that, but even in the Bible we find that. In Babylon, when Babylon rose to be an empire in the world, King Nebuchadnezzar went and he found his own magi. In fact, one of them is very famous for us. It's found in the book of Daniel. In fact, it's Daniel himself that King Nebuchadnezzar came and he took and he selected all the best and the brightest young people. You always wonder who he would select, right? Would it be the kids? I have a feeling it would be the kids up here, right? Hopefully, because they're all good and they're so smart and they all get on the honor roll and it might not be mine. Okay, so I passed on my genes, so we would be left behind. There's a good thing. And so, but when he came, he selected the best and the finest and the brightest young people, and he took them with him, and Daniel was one of them, like 17 years old, and taken to Babylon, away from Israel to Babylon during the time of exile, hundreds of years before this story. And I think these stories are linked, and we'll talk about that at another time. Daniel, you know what his role was there? Chief Magi. That was his name. Read about it yourself. That's what Daniel's role was. He was the chief Magi, if you didn't know. Most of that's just side notes, but just to give you an idea of what the Magi were. So now you get the idea. There were people that had wealth. There were people that were, some of them could be kings even. And so here they come, and they're coming to Jerusalem. And so it picks up in the next part. And here's what the Magi said, verse 2. And they asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him." So there's two things I want you to see. Number one is, we saw his star. You can underline that part. And the second part is we have what? We've come to worship him. You can underline that. That's a part of the story that you want to see. That's their intent. This is why we came. And by the way, I just want you to understand where the star was, and we'll get into this more. But the star was not over Bethlehem. I'm sorry. That's hard for everybody, isn't it? It was over Jerusalem, because that's where they came. Everybody thinks the star appeared above where Christ was born. No, it wasn't. It was above where they showed up. And then it moved. It did. You'll see it in just a second. So they show up, and they're like, we came. This is, they came right to the king, and they said, we've come to see the king. That's why we came. And to worship this amazing king. Have you ever stopped to pause here as you look at this story? And many of us have heard. How many people have heard this story before? Great. Have you ever paused to think, and if you haven't, that's fine too. Pause to think about why the Magi were looking for the star? Because let me tell you how far they came, 800 to 900 miles away, 1,000 miles away, which is a huge distance in ancient times. To come to look for a king, for a prophecy, how did they know? You know what I'm saying? Who told them about this? And it's believed that they had heard the prophecy about Messiah. They did. In a lot of these cultures, they had copies of the Old Testament. It's called the Septuagint. And they had copies of the Greek text. And they had read some of the prophecies. And I don't know who left everything, but I will tell you who was in Babylon was Daniel. And I'm not so sure, being the chief Magi, that he didn't leave a trail for these guys to follow. That they knew about a star, and there's ways we can look in the text, and I would love to spend more time, and if anybody wants to delve into this with me, I won't spend all the time here today talking about these things, but I would love to spend more time talking and discussing and getting your ideas on what you think about how did they know. But today, we're not here to figure out how they knew. God told them. But the point is this. It was that they were looking for Messiah. You get it? And when they came, they were looking and seeking to find the king that they believed would change everything, because not only were they looking for a king, they came to worship him. You get it? And it took them a while. This was not an easy task. This wasn't something you go, hey, let's go down and check out, the Christmas display. This is an 800 or 900 mile trip, and I can tell you, just driving down to Florida, it's about that. Can you imagine if you walked it, or you rode a camel, or you had to go across the desert, or you had to pack your bags and gather your stuff? This took some doing. This was intentional. This took a lot of effort to get there. They didn't just know about it. They took action on what they knew. They put money behind what they knew. They put their influence. Can you imagine when the people said, where are you going? Oh, we're going to follow this star. What? And get that they didn't show up at the birth of Christ. Okay, now this is going to really mess people's manger scenes up, as it has, I told them this once, it's like, hey, it's usually about 18 months to 2 years after the birth of Christ is believed that the wise men showed up. and we had a kid in the church. Well, she's not here now, so I can say her name. Alyssa was a kid then. And so Alyssa took their manger scene and she moved them to the back of the room, so it really messed up. And the mom was a little irritated with me because, we now have wise men at the other end of the room. But it was cool, because why? Because it represented, say, hey, they started seeking him, but it took some time, and that's why it's important to know, hey, they weren't just there at the birth. It took them a long time. Okay, so the point is, they were looking for Messiah. Now, the other point to the story is this. Guess who wasn't? Everybody else. There were other people that showed up, but let me tell you, no one else was looking, and we'll see this. The king, Herod, who was a Jew, was not looking for Messiah. Not in here, see? Not in the prophecy. The religious rulers of that day weren't looking. And you're going to see it. It's very clear that they didn't look. They didn't know. They missed it. In fact, here, let's just read it. Verse 3. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed. And all Jerusalem with him. I guess they were. Guess what? Messiah has been born, guys. He might not have said it that way. The Holy One, the King, the special King. It's been prophesied that he's going to come. Huh? Can you imagine? You're sitting in your thing. He's come. This thing that you Jews say that you've been looking for. And we know about it, and you didn't. I'm disturbed. Yeah, you're disturbed. And you're going to find out in a little while why he was disturbed, because he was about power and keeping his power. It had nothing to do with being excited about Messiah being born. So let's take a look at what they did. Verse 4. When he had called together all the peoples, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, he asked them, where is Messiah to be born? See, this is how you know it wasn't on the radar. You get it? In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Oh. Now, it might sound like I'm being a little hard on them, but let me just tell you, they had more information than these magi. They had been born into this culture. These prophecies were among them. In fact, it didn't take them long to find them. Let's put it that way. But they weren't looking. You get it? They were not looking for him. That wasn't even on their radar. And when they were told that they missed it, let me tell you, they got a little upset, right? They got disturbed. Can I tell you, there's people that get disturbed about the Christmas story. It's true. Don't let that stop you, but it's just a side note. A lot of people get disturbed by the Christmas story. They do. And that's how they reacted. Let's go down to verse 7. And then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report it to me so that I too may go and worship him. Now let me ask you a question. How many, if you don't know the story even, how many actually think that Herod wanted to go and worship the king? I mean, I know this is written word, but you can hear the sarcasm in the voice. It's like, so I can go and murder, so I can go and worship him too. You get the idea? And I think the wise men picked up on that right away. And he's the one that told them. This is how you know the star wasn't there. How do you know? Because he's the one that told them to go to Bethlehem. Where is the king to be born? Oh, I didn't even know that. How do you not know? How do you not look? How do you not care? But he didn't know, and he wasn't looking until he found out. And then he did because he was disturbed. You know, I think that there is something to be said about this whole interchange with Herod, and I think it shows. The Magi had faith. The Magi were truly looking. They were true seekers. They truly wanted to worship God, and we're going to see that in just a minute. But, you know, God sent them to Jerusalem to meet with Herod. He sent them there to meet with the religious rulers of that day. And it might have just been for an example to us because they didn't let them stop them. You know that? When they were there with the religious rulers and Herod, and they could tell what Herod was like, they didn't let that stop them from going to worship the king. They didn't. Can I tell you something that I think it applies to Christmas? In fact, I wanted to name the message this. Do you know there's people that want to suck the joy out of life? Do you know that there's people that are joy suckers? You know what I'm talking about? Huh? Have you met any? And you'll meet them at Christmas time, won't you? They're called family. You know what I mean? Right? And they're coming, and nobody wants to say it, but it's true, isn't it? You're laughing so hard because it's so true, isn't it? And you know they're coming, and you know what they're going to be like, and they're just going to suck the joy out of the entire thing, aren't they? You get it? Herod was one of these people. You get it? And Herod, he was going to stop this joy. He was going to put an end to this because why? Because Herod, and this is a huge part of the story, who was he about? You see, who was he seeking? Who was he following? What was it about for Herod? He wasn't looking for the baby. He was going, I care about my power and my prestige and my thing, and if that gets in my way and it stops me from being this little king in this little country, then I don't care about that. I'll just kill everybody. In fact, he did. He killed a bunch to stop it. And there are people that want to kill your joy just like this. Don't let them do that. There is another side to this, though. Look at how the Magi, look at how they handled the situation. I think it's huge how they handled it. They could have, you know what they could have done? They could have got huge protest signs and said, you guys are terrible. And they could have spent all their time protesting in Jerusalem. We were allowed to say Merry Christmas. That's not funny, is it? And I'm not saying there are people that want to stop you and say Happy Holidays and don't say Merry Christmas, and I'm all for say Merry Christmas. You get it? Don't take Christ out of Christmas. You can't. If you take him out, there's no joy. You get it? So I'm not against doing that. I'm not against saying that. But when it becomes about making a point instead of a difference, watch yourself. Because what I see now is I see angry Christians holding signs saying, Merry Christmas. And I can say it. And they've suddenly had all the joy sucked out. You get it? The Magi didn't do that. The Magi didn't do that. Did they not have preeminence? Could they not have stood there and said, guys, it is bizarre to me that you don't know about this. They said, all right, thanks, Herod. They left there, and they didn't spend a lot of time on that. You get it? They went seeking Christ, and they weren't going to, you see what here's the big part. They didn't let these people keep them from the joy of God. That's the message, guys. You know what I wanted to call this message? Overcoming joy suckers. Get it? And we have to fight it, and sometimes it's us. And we have to fight against that because it's huge. You get it? That's who they were. That's what needed to happen. We come down to verse 9. Here's what happened to them. After they had heard the king, they went on their way. See what I mean? They didn't delay. I got a mission. I'm not going to let you stop me. And what? After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star that they had seen when it rose went ahead of them. You want to underline a couple of things? The star went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. That's how you know it moved. Not my words, this is the Bible. But what did they do? They didn't let Herod and these people and these critical people that just were horrible stop them from following the star. You get the idea? They kept following the star. They kept looking for the star. They kept checking in with the star. You get it? They stayed on point. So, hey, I hear what you guys are saying. I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm not going to get bogged down with that. Can you believe them? I don't hear those conversations. I hear, let's move on. Let's move across. Let's move away from that. I know what this guy's about. In verse 10, this is the one I want you to see. When they saw the star, you want to underline something? When they saw the star, they were what? Overjoyed. There's something for you, circle. You want to see where the joy was? Not in Herod, not in an idea, not in something back here, but what? Following the star. They knew their point. They got back on track, and when they saw it, they went, that's it. And when you are following God, not people, you will get your joy back. You want to know how to get joy this Christmas? You better take your eyes off of all of those fun suckers. You get it? Huh? You're allowed to say that in church? It sounds so wrong, doesn't it? But it's not a bad word. It's really not. Because that's what they do. They suck the fun. They suck the joy. And by the way, when we come on Christmas Eve, we're going to have fun. And we're going to celebrate the birth of Christ. And if you don't want to do that, you're still welcome to come, but we're not going to let you suck the joy out. You get it? We're hoping to bring you with us. You get it? And that's the whole idea behind it. Do we always feel that way? No. Are you going to feel that way? No, because guess who the enemy is mostly? I have found the enemy. And he ain't out there. You get it? And he ain't out there. He's right here. You get it? The one who has the most to do is right here. And the way that you get the joy is you stop focusing on all of this. Some of you are going, you don't know my circumstances. No, I don't. You don't know what I'm facing this holiday season. You can't expect me to have joy this holiday season, and I can't. And I have no idea what you're facing. But I will tell you this, if you can take your eyes off of your circumstances and you can put them on the star, it just might change everything. And you will get your joy back. And whoever comes to Christmas dinner, you know what I mean? You know who's coming. You know who you're just going, And you're smiling at the table and your family's going, man, the Academy Award goes to. We should do that, right? New Year's. We got, who gets the Academy Award for Best Actor at the Christmas dinner? You know? Some people are really not. Some people, you can see the ones not laughing because they know what I'm saying, right? Verse 11. After they saw the star, after they followed the star, what happened? On coming to the house, they saw the child and his mother Mary, and they bowed down, and they did what? They worshiped him. And then they did what? They opened their treasure, and they presented him with the gifts. Underline it. That's something to follow, guys. They worshiped, they opened their treasures, they presented gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And we could spend a whole lot of time on gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There's a lot of good jokes about it to say, hey, the baby's shivering in the cold, and we threw gold on him. You know, I don't know. That was really funny when the guy sang about it. But I am so ADD with this cold, I can't tell you. I can spend a lot of time on the gifts, but that's not the point here. They spent their time and their talent and their treasures to get here. It cost them. They didn't come with small gifts. These are kingly gifts that cost them. You get it? That they gave to the King of Kings. They gave him what they had, the best of all. And guys, if this is not the most bizarre thing on the planet, I don't know what is. Because at Bethlehem, maybe it would be okay. The birth, oh, he's there. But a couple years later with a toddler, and these guys just basically show up out of the blue. It's like you're just going along everyday life, Mary and Joseph, with no one around, and these magi show up at the house with this huge entourage. They come in, they bow down, they worship him, and then they pull out these amazing treasures, and then they go. Weird, right? But you want to know what's weirder? Where is everybody else? The weird part's not the Magi. The weird part is, where is the rest of the world? Where are the religious rulers who know the Scripture? You get the idea? Because it's not because they hadn't read it. Guys, the theory is they could take the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and drive a nail through the Torah and tell you the letters that are missing. They know the Bible. They memorized the Bible as a youth. They didn't just know it. They memorized it. They know it better than anyone you know. But they missed Messiah. And these guys didn't. Huh? Because they were looking and the other guys weren't. And they brought and they sacrificed. And a baby was born in obscurity, the King of Kings. And yes, there's other people, and you can get into the Christmas story, and you can see the other people, because not everybody missed it, but a whole lot did. They missed the main event on the whole planet, but these guys didn't. And they did what? Here's what I want you to see. They worshiped him. That's what it's all about. They came all that way to present gifts. That's great. But they worshiped him. We're going to spend some time in the new year talking about this. If you don't know what that means, that's fine. But I can tell you, here's how you can know if you know what it means. Not here. How's your joy? Because I will tell you something. And I think it's something we all have to look at, including me, because it's not how much you know. It helps to know. But it's not just how much you know. But I can tell you this, if you're truly worshiping God, you will experience the joy that these guys got to experience. And if you're not worshiping God, you're missing it. So let me ask you a question. How's your joy? How's the level of your joy? Hey, you don't know. Yeah, I know. I don't. But if you could truly worship God, and I can tell you, some of us show up, but we're not seeing him. You get it? He ain't there. Why? Because you can't just, by the way, everybody else in Bethlehem, he was there. But they weren't worshiping. You see what the difference is? The people next door to baby Jesus as a toddler missed it. The ones in Bethlehem that were so religious and so right and so here and so making their point missed it. But these guys didn't. And the difference was these guys had incredible joy and the other people didn't. You want to experience joy? Can I tell you where it's at? We've got to learn to worship. It's huge. Verse 12. This is the end of it. And I wondered what this meant, but I think if we're not careful, we'll miss this verse. Verse 12. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. By the way, Herod was bad. Okay? He wanted to kill him. In fact, after this, you can read it yourself. It's really horrible. He killed multiple babies to try to kill this baby. That's his Christmas. You get it? True Grinch. Truly unsatisfied. And he died a miserable, awful death. He really did. A miserable man who had lots of wealth in this world, who had lots of things in this world, who went from one thing to the next looking for satisfaction and never found it. That's Herod. But they didn't go back to him because they were warned in a dream and they returned to their country by another route. What's the point for us? Once you experience it, and some of us have, keep listening and keep following. You see, the problem is sometimes we think we got it. We've obtained it. We've worshiped him once and that's it, and now we're done. We've listened to him once and he told us to go there, and we're looking at the star, but we don't realize that God is moving it as we go. He's going, hey, show up here, and then I'll give you the next part. You go to Jerusalem. You go 900 miles to Jerusalem, and then I'll tell you where the next part is. And after the baby, listen to my dream. And they don't have to say, well, we just worship the king. Now what do we do? Well, we're pretty smart. We can figure it out. No. They check back in. You get it? This is huge. I wish we had more time with that particular part, but that's huge. Keep that in mind. Keep going with it. Okay. So what's the takeaway? Here's the takeaway for us. I don't know where you come from. I don't know how you come here today. I don't know if you're thrilled and excited and Christmas is just, yay. But I know one thing. I know it's not the happiest time of the year for everybody. I get it. And I know there's people that have lost people. I know there's people that are going through struggles. I know there's people that you're smiling and no one else knows, but inside you're dying. You go, how do you know that? Because I've been there. I've been there too. I know. And I know there's some people just hanging on by the shoestring to go, I showed up here today and I don't even know why I came, but hopefully there might be just a little glimmer of hope. Maybe you can see the star. You get it? That big. I put my thumb over it. I did that while I was in Florida. Can't see the sun. Can see it. That's you. The glimmer of hope's so little, it's just like a little speck. You know what I'm talking about? Small star possible. If that's you today, it's okay. God brought you here today. I really believe it. Just like he did the wise men. Just like that star showed up for them. By the way, no one else was looking at it. It must not have been that spectacular because nobody else saw it. So it must have been something you had to really, really look for. But today I think God wants to open your eyes and say, look up at the sky. Look at what I'm about to show you and realize that I have something for you. I don't care where you come from or what you've done, but that baby that was born in Bethlehem came. He's the Son of God. And he died on a cross that the manger is forever linked to the cross. And that he died for your sins no matter what you've done, no matter how bad you think you are, no matter how sad you are, no matter how much somebody had hurt you. He wants you to know that he loves you and that he died for you and that he can restore you. And if you walk out of here today with nothing else but this, it'll be the greatest gift you will ever have. It is the true gift of Christmas, which I think these guys got. And I hope you will too. Don't leave here today without knowing him. All he asks is that you turn to him, that you call out to him. You may not even know what to do, but you call out to him in your own words and you say, I'm a sinner. You repent of your sins and you turn to God and he will forgive you and he'll come in and he'll help you. You need help with forgiveness? He'll help you with that. I don't know what day is better, the day you forgive or the day you learn to forgive. Actually, I can tell you because for me it was the day I learned to forgive. Maybe it's both. Hurting people hurt people. Isn't that right? Maybe this is what it is. And some of us are going, but it's holidays. I'm happy. I get it. But some people aren't. Be aware of that. And I'm praying for you today, and I'm hoping that you can find it. And God has brought you here with no less of a star. You want to see it again? Here's the picture. No less of a star than what he brought you and what he brought there. He's calling out to you today, and here's what he wants you to do. You want to know what he wants you to do? Some of us have got it here. See, the problem is, here's what it is. This is why we don't have joy. We got it here. We've read the stories. We've said the things. We've read the story a million times, and we got it right here. And Jesus is saying, I know you mentally assent. I get it. But will you follow me? You want to know the true gift of Christmas? Will you follow him? Oh, big difference. And I have a feeling we got some Christians in the room. It's the same thing. Will you follow Jesus? Following Jesus is going to take a few things. Maybe you need to write them down. I don't know. It's going to take faith. He ain't giving you the whole picture, is he? He doesn't give you the whole path up front. He gives you the piece that you need to know, and he's going, because of what I did on the cross, can you trust me with the things that you don't understand? You get it? It's going to take faith. You can believe it took these guys faith. I'm going to go 1,000 miles. I'm going to pack my donkeys. They're prepared. They did all kinds of things to go on this trip. But before you go on this trip, do you know where you're going? How do you know where you're going? How did they know where they're going? That star. And look at them. They felt so much comfort in that. Rick talked about it last Sunday. If you didn't hear that, go back and listen to it. How do you know where to go? How do you know what the next step is? How do you know where you're supposed to be going? Because they had something to follow. But before you start following, you better know if you believe in it. You better commit. And by the way, it didn't take a little commitment on their part. This was huge. We're going to leave everything we know. We're going to feel like fools in our country land, and we're going to go to some place that no one knows. And when we get there, no one else is doing this. Narrow is the way, man. Most people don't find it. How can you tell? Most people don't know him. How do you know? I see it in their joy. Sometimes I haven't either. Get it? How do you know if you're following? The joy's there. Because you know, I believe in that. I believe. Not a blind faith, not a I hope it's true. It's a faith rooted in evidence, but it is a faith that goes beyond anything you can imagine. It's going to take faith. And then it takes something else that these guys had that I really believe is true. If you're going to follow, you know what it takes? Action. Action on that faith. Ooh. Not enough just to believe, oh, I believe that Messiah is being born, but I'm not going to experience him. You have to get up, pack the mules. You got to do some preparation. We'll talk more about that in the new year. Preparation. It's going to take some tenacity. It's a good Christian word. Tenacity. Why? Because it isn't going to be easy, is it? The journey isn't easy. The joy suckers are not easy. And they're going to be there to suck all the joy out of this and make you doubt yourself. You get it? So you better have some tenacity. You better know what you believe in, because they're going to make you want to think that it's not true. You get it? So build up for it. Overcome them. It's going to take some sacrifice. You see what these guys did? To truly follow. You know what they gave? Their time and their talent and their treasures. And right now, everybody's going to check out because you're going to go, oh, here comes the money part. Give the new branch. Can I tell you, this is not about new branch. The elders are looking at me funny. We don't need any more money to finish out the new year. I don't know if you've ever heard a church say that, but it's true. We don't. We're great. You guys have been so generous to this church. We don't need more to do what we've been doing. We don't need that. Here's what I'm asking for. Give to the cause of Christ. If you want to give here, that's great. I mean, if you want us to help you find a place to give, we can do that. But this is not a ploy. This is not a message about giving to New Branch or pull out your checkbooks and write a big check. Okay? It's not. It is not. But it is about this. What will you do? Here's a good time frame for you. What will you do this holiday season? I've had to think about it myself. Will you consume it all yourself? Will you go home and we become, and I did this on vacation some, and I had to even challenge myself with it, to go, have we become so consumed with self that we consume it all ourselves? And then we wonder why we're miserable. And God is saying, I didn't give it all to you for you to consume it. I gave it to you. You see, we see all these people with need, and we go, God, please meet the need. And we realize he's going, I did. I sent it to you. Will you help? And in a reasonable fashion. That's why I appreciate last Saturday while we were gone on the beach. Don't you like that, John? In 80-degree weather on the beach. We were thinking of you guys. And you were here in the cold and the rain. But last Saturday, you guys did a fundraiser, and it doesn't matter how much money it is. That's why we're not going to announce it. But you guys raised money for Isle of Wight Christian Outreach. That's big. What else you got? You want to help somebody? Help them. Why? Because they actually evaluate people. They actually really, really help people. Second Chances in Franklin that helps all of Tidewater. They can help people. You want to donate some stuff? Do it. Call them. Find out. They would be blown away if you could help them. There's many, many more. I'm not trying to put you in a box. All I'm asking is what will you do? Will you consume it all, or will you give it away? Interesting. I need to tell you something. If you choose to follow, We're not just talking about making a little easy decision for Christ. But if you truly choose to follow Christ, it will not be easy. The Magi, if they taught us nothing else, it was not an easy journey. And probably the hardest part was Jerusalem. By the way, God led them to Jerusalem. Oh, that's tough, isn't it? I'm not sure why, but God can answer that, but he'll lead you to a place like Jerusalem. It won't be easy, but I can tell you this. It will be worth it. Because if you'll go, if you'll follow him, you will get to do something. You will get to worship him. Maybe you don't know what that means. Come back, because we're going to be talking a lot about that coming up this year. It is what is missing. And we want it. We want to do it. And it's amazing. Maybe you don't know how to do it, but just reaching out to him. You will see him in a way, and when you experience him in that way, it'll be an amazing thing. It's not just about music. It's not just about that. It is about one thing, and it's about giving everything you have to him. And when that happens, you will experience joy in a way that you have never known. You will see him in a way you've never seen him. And it's this thing where he receives your worship and you receive joy, and it's just an amazing experience. And I pray that for you this Christmas. But the only way it works is if you follow him. One more thing with that. Once you experience it, keep listening. Keep following. Part of the problem for the Christian world is we were following and then we stopped. We thought we had it. We thought we obtained it. And he's going, no. Yes, salvation is once and for all. Please don't hear what I'm not saying. I believe with all my heart that he's the same one, that he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. You don't have to worry or be afraid. Your salvation is secure. But following takes a lifetime. Don't think you've obtained it and now you sit back and you retire or you do whatever it is. You can't. It is ongoing, and you get to experience. But by the way, you get to experience it again and again and again. And if you don't have joy, I can tell you why it is. You're not following. It isn't your circumstances, because what I've learned amongst Christians and watching them is that the people that are following, in fact, in my own life, when I'm following, I have joy no matter what the circumstances. When I'm not following, I don't have joy no matter what the circumstances. I can have fun, but I can't have joy. Will you follow him? You'll never regret it. Okay. One last question. Will you follow the star? Huh? That's Jesus. Will you be the star? I like that one. I'm an I personality. I want to be a star, you know. You go to Disney, man, you're a star. Not that kind of star. Will you do what the star did? Will you promote him? Who are you promoting? This is a great question. Who do you promote with your life? You? And by the way, the most miserable people, you want to know who they are? Self-promoters. You want to know who the most miserable people to be around are? Don't look at them. You're looking at me. Stop. Self-promoters, right? They're miserable. They're miserable to be around. And it loses. You'll lose it. You can't obtain it. You're beautiful one day, and then you're not the next. And you're young one day, and then you're not the next. You get it? You're powerful one day, you're not the next. It's ridiculous. Will you promote him? Will you promote the Christ? Because, and just a side note, be careful how you promote him. Look at the approach of the Magi. Are you doing this? You doing this? Huh? There's a difference. Have you come to make a point? This is the difference. This is the difference between the two. Have you come to make a point? Because Jesus didn't come to make a point. He could have. He could have destroyed everyone, set up his throne in heavenly glory, and fried the earth. You get it? You people are ridiculous. I'll make a new creature. But he didn't. He came to make a difference. Maybe you thought God's all your life against you. He didn't send Jesus to make a point. If he did, he didn't make a very good one. He sent him to make a difference. And does the truth not matter? The truth matters. He is the embodiment of truth and grace. And he took all that on himself. You get it? And he made the biggest difference in this world will ever see. And these guys got it. Will you? And let me tell you something about that. He's given us the ability to be part of it. This is true. There is a reason we are not in heaven. Anybody think this is heaven? No. There's a reason we're not in heaven, and it's this. Will we pass it on to other people? That's the only thing he's left us here to do. Be the star. Will you help promote? And I can tell you this, the greatest day of your life is coming to faith and trust in Jesus Christ. But I'm not so sure the greatest day is not when you get to point somebody else that way after you got it. And he's going, I have left you here with the greatest mission this world has ever seen, and it is for you to use your life not just to make a point, but to make a difference and to win a lost and dying world while there is still time. I'll give you 2 simple ways to do it if you want. You want to know how you can do it this year? Here's a good test for you, because it's all great in theory, you know what I mean? But this Christmas season, what will you do? Who will you invite? What will you invite them to? How will you get outside of your comfort zone? How will you embody that this Christmas? How will you follow the star? How will you be the star? Who will you invite if you have it? Will you invite them here? We have a Christmas Eve service. More people will come to that, I'm surprised, that will come to that on Christmas Eve. Who do you know that needs hope? Who do you know that you go, yeah, that person won't come? Maybe that's who God's calling you to invite. Will you invite them? 6 p.m., it's going to be a lot of fun. We even got Santa Claus coming. Excited. I won't tell you who it is. It's real. Sorry, online people, I believe. But more than that, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of joy. We're going to introduce them to Jesus Christ. Somebody's getting saved that night. What if it could be that person? If you'll only point them. If you'll only help them. You want a good Christmas gift? Pastor Jim Wall wrote a book. We got it out here. This is not just self-promoting. You buy it, you don't buy it, I don't care. But you want to give a great gift, it's a great book to give. Unmuted, restoring our voice in the world, the church's voice, in a good way. Not just for people that don't understand. What is Christianity supposed to be all about? There you go. That's another aspect. I don't want you to be limited to what I'm saying. Who will you invite to your Christmas dinner? Who will you get out of your comfort zone? I told you it's going to cost you something, right? Who will you get out? And it's not about money. It's more about time. It's more about investment. Who will you invest in this Christmas season? You got to get right first, though, right? Will you do it? Here's what I want you to imagine. Here's what's at the end of this result. Imagine worshiping Christ. Maybe you hadn't done that in a long time. Maybe you need to do that today, with or without music, it doesn't matter. Maybe you truly need to get on your knees before God today and give him your life and truly worship him and experience the joy that only he can give. Would that be amazing? There is no greater gift. You can have everything in the world and be miserable, isn't that? Who wants that? That's not how we imagine it, is it? Not those things that diminish, but we know that things diminish. And the older we get, the more we realize how diminishing they get, don't we? Well, when there's this one thing that we go, if we do this, we can experience joy again and again and again. It doesn't get less, it gets greater. Give it to him. And then one more thing, will you share it? Because there's only one thing better than getting it yourself. It's sharing it with another person. In fact, it's why God left us here. So what will you do? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine Christmas Eve with that person there? Can you imagine that person walking through the door? I can. You know how? I'm looking at a whole bunch of impossible people that God chose to redeem. And it's slowly changing us one by one. Isn't that right? You think he could do it again? I do. What if we could be a church that that's what we were about? Think about that. Let's stand for prayer. Father, we come before you today, and Lord, we just are so grateful for the gift of God. I thought about just ending with Stephanie's song today because she said it better than I'll ever be able to say, and she went beyond words into a deep part, the breath of heaven that breathed on us. Anybody who's been without breath understands how important breath is. But when you give it to us, there's nothing like it. And somebody here today, Lord, I believe with all my heart needs it. Somebody here is dying inside, or maybe is already dead, maybe never been alive. And they're going, how do I get that? I pray you breathe on them today, God. New life. Let them experience Christ for the first time as they call out to you. They repent of their sins and turn to you. And then help us all, Lord, to follow you. To give of our time and our talent and our treasures to you. And then, God, I pray that we will not just keep it to ourselves, that we'll share it. But before we go there, God, I pray that we don't miss the most important element, that it's not just about mission, that we truly worship the King of Kings. And that you will experience the joy that comes from having your creation finally worship you. And we will experience the joy of finally being in relationship with you. And in that moment where we sit in the Holy of Holies, that's paid for, bought and paid for by your blood, as you sit on the mercy seat and you invite us in to sit beside you. I pray, God, we'll experience something we've never had, the joy that only you can give. You receive all the honor and the glory and the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.